A ham sandwich walks into a bar and orders a beer. The bartender says we don't serve food here. A rope walks into a bar. The bartender looks up and says, "Get out. We don't serve rope in here." So the rope goes out, cuts itself in two before tying the two sections together. It then pulls out a comb and combs its ends. The rope then walks back into the bar. The bartender says, "Hey, aren't you the rope that I just threw out?" The rope replied, "No, I'm afraid not." A horse walks into a bar. The bartender says, "You are in here a lot. Do you think you have a drinking problem?" The horse says, "I don't think so," then disappears into nothing. This is the point in time when all the philosophy students in the audience begin to giggle, as they are familiar with the philosophical proposition of cogito ergo sum, where I think, therefore, I am. The classic philosophy put forward by René Descartes. But to explain the concept beforehand would be putting Descartes before the horse. A man walks into a bar with a small newt on his shoulder. The bartender said, "What an interesting pet. What's his name?" "Tiny," the man replied. The bartender said, "That's an odd name. Why did you call him Tiny?" "Because he's my newt." A weasel walks into a bar. The bartender says, "Wow, I've never served a weasel before. What can I get you?" Pop goes the weasel. A pirate walks into a bar with a paper towel on his head. The bartender says, "What's with the paper towel?" The pirate says, "I've got a bounty on me head." A man walks into a bar. The bartender asks, "What do you want?" The man replies, "Oh, just some fruit punch." The bartender sighs and shakes his head. "If you want punch, you're gonna have to wait in line." The man looks around, but there is no punch line. A neutron walks into a bar and asks how much for a drink. The bartender says, "For you, no charge." COVID, HIV, and the flu walks into a bar. Bartender says, "What is this? Some kind of sick joke." An infinite number of mathematicians walk into a bar. The first says, "I'll have a beer." The second says, "I'll have half a beer." The third says, "I'll have a quarter of a beer," and so on. The bartender interrupts them, says, "I know your limit," and pours them 2 beers. The bartender says, "We don't serve time travelers in here." A time traveler walks into a bar. A man walks into a bar and sees a steak hanging from the ceiling. He asks the bartender, "Why is there a piece of steak hanging from the ceiling?" The bartender replies, "If somebody jumps and manages to hit the steak, all drinks will be free for the entire night. However, if somebody tries and misses, they will have to buy drinks for everybody else for the entire night. Would you like to try?" The man thinks about it and replies, "No thanks, the stakes are too high." A king and queen walk into a bar. The bartender says, "Sorry, you're not 21. A man walks into a bar with a piece of asphalt. The man says to the bartender, "One for me, and one for the road." A really bad impressionist walks into a bar. The bartender says, "Why the wrong face?" C, E flat, and G walk into a bar. The bartender says, "Sorry, no minors." 2 bacteria walk into a bar. The bartender says, "Sorry, but we don't serve bacteria here." To which the bacteria reply with, but we work here, we're staff. Just a moment away from more dad jokes, right after this brief pause. A Mobius strip walks into a bar crying. The bartender says, "What's wrong, buddy?" The Mobius strip replies, "Oh, where do I even begin?" So a snake walks into a bar. The bartender says, "How'd you do that?" I once asked for a rum and coke, and the bartender said, "Is Pepsi okay?" I said, "No, I definitely prefer rum." A guy walks into a bar and orders a beer. Soon he hears a voice, "Nice tie." But no other customers are around. A few minutes later, "Looks like you've been working out." So he asks the bartender what's up. The bartender says, "It's the peanuts. They're complimentary." A screwdriver walks into a bar and the bartender says, "Hey, we have a drink named after you." To which the screwdriver replies, "You have a drink named Philip?" On New Year's Eve, Marilyn stood up in the local pub and said that it was time to get ready. At the stroke of midnight, she wanted every husband to be standing next to the one person who made his life worth living. As the clock struck, the bartender was almost crushed to death. Every day, a doctor would go to the same bar and order a chestnut daiquiri. One day, the bartender ran out of chestnut and used hickory instead. The doctor came in, sipped it, and exclaimed, "Yuck! What is this?" The bartender replied, "That's a hickory daiquiri, doc." A pair of jumper cables walks into a bar. The bartender says, "You can stay, but don't start anything." A raisin, a peanut, and an oat sit down and order a drink. Bartender says, "What do you think this is? A granola bar?" An atom walks into a bar and asks the bartender if he's seen his missing electron. "Are you sure she's missing?" asks the bartender. "I'm positive," replies the atom. Helvetica and Times New Roman walk into a bar. "Get out of here," shouts the bartender, "we don't serve your type." A clay pot walks into a bar and says, "Give me a whiskey and make it a double." Bartender asks, "Had a rough day?" Clay pot replies, "Yeah, I just got fired." It's a 5-minute walk from my house to the bar, but a 45-minute walk from the bar to my house. The difference is staggering. I got arrested because I left my car at the bar and took the bus home. It turned out I was in no condition to drive that either. Why do bouncers throw violent drunks out the back door? Because they belong behind bars. I'm at a bar on Halloween and one of the bartenders is wearing a hard hat, coveralls, and goggles. I pointed at him and shouted, "He can't be here, he's a minor." A guy at a bar asked, "Are you using all these stools?" I asked, "What? Are you conducting a stool sample?" A midget stumbles out of the bar. He was a little drunk. I'm Montgomery Jones. We're on a mission to spread the laughs and groans far and wide, so please do us a favor and share just one of these jokes with your family and friends today. Thanks. Looking for the perfect gift for Christmas? We have the all-new Christmas joke button now available on Amazon. A huge 101 preloaded Christmas-themed jokes from our years of collecting dad jokes. Perfect for stocking fillers, Secret Santa, and Kris Kringle. Fun for all ages and guaranteed to provide laughs and groans. Check the show notes page for the link. The Daily Dad Jokes podcast is produced by Classic Studios. See the show notes page for social media links and joke credits. This show was recorded in front of a canned studio audience.